Hey y'all, how are you today? I hope you are enjoying your Sunday. As I like to call it, Sundays are one of my favorite days for self-care and just restoring yourself and refreshing yourself for the upcoming week. And so part of self-care Sundays for me is some reflection, some self-work. And I thought, what would be a better thing to do other than recap live the latest episode of Iyanla Fix My Life? If you didn't, hopefully y'all got to catch the episode last night. But if you didn't, this is the last season of Iyanla Fix My Life. And I'm actually really sad. Like, this for me has been one of the best shows on television. Where I am in my life, I'm sure a lot of you all are there as well, trying to grow, trying to become a better person. And I think we all know the struggle that comes along with that. So I'll give y'all a little background. Hey, everybody, I'm looking at the comments and see people coming in. I'll give y'all a little background. I have a bachelor's in psychology. I also have a master's in social work, but I also have a law degree. So my chosen profession, I am an actual licensed practicing attorney. But once I chose psychology as one of my electives in high school, I have been obsessed. I'm a natural voyeur. I like to watch people. I like to go over why we do what we do. And that's what psychology is. It's the study of behavior, human behavior, the who's, what's, why's behind who we are, our behaviors, what we do. And so seeing Iyanla in practice, even though we only get, this edited 1 hour version of her work, for me was very powerful over these last 8 seasons, right? Um, I will be honest and transparent as I like to be. I had a lot of self-work to do and I'm still doing it. Y'all, it's not easy. Trying to be your best self is not easy. It comes with a lot of checking yourself because it's not everybody in your relationships. A lot of times it's you. And sometimes we deal with things and suffer from things that we're not even fully aware of. The brain is a powerful thing. So your subconscious protects you from a lot of things. Your ego is there to protect you from a lot of things that if you're fully aware of, you may not be ready to process. And that is why life is always changing. You grow, you become a little stagnant. You might revert a little bit and then you push forward again. So as long as you are trying, as long as you are aware and are doing the work, you're trying to make yourself better, that's all that anybody can ask. But don't live in denial. Don't be afraid to do the work. It's hard work. And from my study of psychology, it's so funny, you learn things in books about the different stages and phases of life that we encounter. But when you actually see them play out in your own life, I know for me, it's been mind blowing, like completely humbling, actually, to see a lot of things I learned about in my classes play out in my own life. So, with that being a little background, what we're going to do today is, of course, talk about the episode, but also talk a little about psychology, how things that I know I've studied, we can actually see them at play in LisaRaye's journey. For those who didn't see the episode, or even if you saw it, last night's episode was called LisaRaye McCoy, Queen of De-Nial. And it was a continuation of what we saw last season when she came on the show with her mother and her daughter. And I will say that I think even Iyanla learned in this situation, it was a great example of how therapy has to occur in stages. A lot of individual therapists will tell you you can't rush into the family therapy or the group therapy. A lot of times you have to start with yourself, with the person, before you bring in all the other pieces. And I know when I watched that episode last year, you could really see that. They tried to jump in and heal everybody at once, and it was a complete crap show. It's just not possible. You have to start with your building blocks and then go from there, especially when different people are at different levels of acceptance. You know, LisaRaye is in her 50s. She may be ready to work and change. Her daughter is still in her late 20s. Most people in their late 20s aren't there yet. Her mother was in her, I think, early 70s. And I'll just say, my family members, my mother is 74, and it's very hard for that generation. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's hard for them to embrace change. But furthermore, no matter what age you're at, you have to want to change. You have to see and understand that something is wrong or that you need help in healing or fixing something. No one can do that for you. Other people can tell you, hey, you might need some therapy. But until you embrace it yourself, they'll be talking to brick walls. And I experienced that myself in my own journey. Janice Christopher, thank you so much, sis, for the super chat. I love y'all. Thank you all for your support. And yeah, let's get into it. So I made this little thing, and I don't know if y'all gonna be able to see it if I make it big. I know some of that writing is really small, but let's get into it. So one of the things that is key to all of this, a thing that I learned with my psychology degree, all these different psychiatrists and psychologists had their different theories. But one that always rang true, especially to me, was Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And we'll talk about how this plays out, how you can see it in LisaRaye's episode. So basically, Maslow proposed this hierarchy of needs that he said you can't reach one level until the next level has been completed. It is his theory of how human motivation and behavior works. And if you really think about it, it's true. You can't think about being your best self if you're hungry. You can't think about being your best self or getting a new, rising to the top of your career if you don't even have a place to sleep at night. So our first level that we must meet in our hierarchy of needs is the physiological level. So it's basic survival necessities: breathing, food, water, sex, sleep, homeostasis, and excretion. The next level is safety. And for some people, they think, oh, I have a home and a place to sleep at night, I'm safe. No, safety is more than that. It's emotional safety. It's mental safety. So safety is security of body, of employment, of your resources, of your morality, of your family, of your health, and of your property. The next hierarchy we'll strive to achieve is the love and belonging hierarchy, which means you need friendship, family, sexual intimacy, and romantic relationships. Once you're secure in all of those, then you rise to the level of esteem, your self-esteem, your confidence, how much you've achieved in your life, your respect of others, and then the respect that you receive from others. And if you conquer all of those, he proposes that we strive to get to the final level, which is the self-actualization level. And that is when you have the desire to accomplish everything that one can and to become the most and best that you can be. That means your morality, your creativity, your spontaneity, problem solving, you have a lack of prejudice, and you accept facts. So a lot of people vacillate between these different hierarchies, especially if the bare minimum is done. If you have all of your physiological needs, if you have all of your safety needs, then you try to get in between love and belonging, your esteem, and then ultimately self-actualization. My thing is kind of hiding it a little bit, but I'll read it for y'all. So the goal is that self-actualized people, or how you can say, am I self-actualized? Self-actualized people accept themselves and others as they are. That's the key. We're not out here trying to manipulate people and change people into what they, what we want them to be. We love and accept our friends, family, coworkers, romantic partners, whoever, for who and what they are. Self-actualized people tend to, to lack inhibition and are able to enjoy themselves and their lives freely. Not only do self-actualized people fully accept themselves, they also embrace other people for who they are. So ultimately, that is the goal. Now, one of the goals, I should say, when we saw this episode with LisaRaye, you could tell that she was trying to, on some levels, manipulate her mother and her daughter into who and what she wanted them to be. You can't do that. Everyone has to do that for themselves. So let's get into the episode a little bit. Iyanla always, I take notes on these episodes, y'all, because I go back and see how I can put this stuff into play in my own life. The first thing she said out of the gate was there was a difference between being finished and being complete. And that was in reference to LisaRaye coming back. So when you're finished, you have reached the end of your capacity to absorb things in a productive way. She's like, you know what? This is why we ended the last episode with LisaRaye and her family, because they had reached their capacity. And you have to recognize what your capacity is. This self-work is a lot. You won't be able to do it all at once. So don't put that type of pressure on yourself. I know for me, I was in a haze, seriously, probably up until I was 28 years old, around 2011. In 2013, I finally started to make some changes because I was completely uncomfortable with where my life was at that point. I was in a horrible relationship that had took a lot of my self-esteem and self-worth. So finally in 2013, I was like, you know what? Gotta let this go. I finally made a choice for myself and put actions to the choice. Ended the relationship, had the person move out of my house, and then I had space to start working on me. But that was one step. I didn't get into pushing myself further until after 2015 when I lost my baby. That was a life-changing experience that made me see, girl, you got to get it together. Life is too short. But even after that, I took steps back because it was hard to confront all of my childhood trauma, generational curses, and past issues, right? Didn't start therapy until 2018, and then COVID happened. And God revealed a lot to me during COVID and this whole time. That's actually one of the reasons why I'm here with y'all now. I've wanted to do something like this since 2017. Had a logo made, did everything, but couldn't do the work. Right? So don't be discouraged if you feel like you're trying and it's just not getting there. Anyway, enough about me. Let's get into this episode. So when you're complete, finished versus complete, when you're complete, you have turned every stone, finished every task, received everything available, done all that you could do, and you walk away knowing that it is done. So some things you may never be completed on. It's an ongoing process. Hi, Stephanie Collins, showing my bar exam sister. We took it the same year. Some love. This is great content. Thank you so much, sis. I actually took 2 bars. Don't ask me why I subjected myself to that. But yeah, Louisiana in 2009 and Mississippi in 2017. So we get into this episode and we see that LisaRaye is back. She's like, I was unsettled. I knew I wasn't complete. I know I needed to do more work. She knew that she had a lot of heaviness and guilt with her. And I will tell y'all, when God is ready for you to move, he is going to make it so uncomfortable for you that you have to move. You have no other choice. It will get like life will just be such a burden on you. It'll be heavy. Everything around you, nothing will seem to work. Whereas before you had favor and things were going well in your life. Now it's like, what is going on? He'll make it where you got to move. So LisaRaye was at that point in her life. She finally had to deal with the epiphany of what they revealed last episode, that she was the other woman in her father and mother's relationship. Her mother and father were using her, or her father was really using her in competition with her mother. And some people will look at that and be like, oh my God, like it sounds perverse. But if we're honest with ourselves, that happens in a lot of parent-child relationships. You know, the mother-daughter relationship is a very complex relationship. And if the mother fundamentally has a hard time with female relationships, unfortunately, they will begin to see their child as another woman that is competing. Next, she talks about her throne and how Iyanla shows her the hills and the valleys and everything that you have to go through to get to your throne. A queen's work, if we want to become queens, is never done. And sometimes to be a queen, you have to sit in the valleys. So this is where she talks about all of the valleys that we see and that we have to go through in life. These were the valleys that she showed on the show, and we'll go through them. But the first one is understanding. Next is courage, non-resistance, comeuppance, OPP, which means other people's problems, purpose and intent, and then success, and finally love. One thing that she said that really stuck out to me was, of course, in all things, we have to get understanding first. You have to become aware. If you're not aware of your problems, you don't know where to start. So the first part of self-work is really being honest with yourself about what's going on. Like, what are the issues that I keep encountering? If you keep running into the situation with different people, a lot of times that's a roadblock. There's a lesson or something that God is trying to teach you that you haven't been able to receive yet. So to get understanding, Iyanla says you have to get underneath the thing and stand in the truth of it. Don't run from the truth. Next, you have to get to courage. She said a quote by Dr. Maya Angelou that just blew me away. And she says that courage is doing what you know needs to be done before you are forced to do it. Right? Like, I'll say it again. Courage is doing what you know needs to be done before you are forced to do it. So how many times, let's just say in a romantic relationship, we see the red flags early. We know it's not going to work. We know we're not evenly yoked with the person, but they look good, or the sex is good, or you're lonely and you just want some companionship. It don't have to be anything serious. I just need somebody for right now. You have to have the courage to let stuff like that go that you know won't serve your life. In fact, may actually bring more hardships and pain to your life. Sometimes we have to be alone and be uncomfortable in the aloneness. You know, it's what life is if you want the best life for yourself. Because if you keep settling and just staying there because it's comfortable, you'll never reach the rest of the steps. Or in Maslow's case, you'll never continue to climb the hierarchy because we keep doing what's comfortable, what feels good. Um, she says because, you know, with courage, a lot of times we can't get to courage because of resistance and denial. That's why the next step is non-resistance. Resistance, denial, and fear hold us back from our courage. You have to push past all of these things because if you don't, you get stuck in the OPP, which is other people's problems or purpose. How many of us do that? We settle, we don't seek understanding, we're not courageous, we resist everything that people try to tell us. Then we have the comeuppance. They didn't really get into the episode. They didn't do a lot of comeuppance, but a comeuppance is basically your just desserts, getting what you deserve out of a situation. Then you get stuck in other people's problems or purpose, which directly reflects to people pleasing. If we need to get up and testify, I am a people pleaser. I'm trying to be in reformation, but I'm definitely a people pleaser where I get so caught up, and we would take that back to Maslow with the need of acceptance, the need of friendship, being liked by others to the point where you care so much about what the other people want that you deny what you want and need for yourself. And then you take on other people's purpose. God may have called you to do one thing in your life, but you're so caught up in your children or your husband or your family. You know, those things have a place, but you also have to be the best that you can be so that you can help them be the best for themselves. Next, or is you're trying to get to your purpose and intent, but your purpose and intent has to be clear in order for you to get to the valley of success. And what I love that she said about success, people put these things on success: the big house, the big car, you know, the nuclear family. Everybody wants to be their version of the Obamas. But success is actually internal. What do you think is successful? How do you define success? Do you sleep with yourself well at night? All right. So as we look at LisaRaye, she shows that LisaRaye is still showing resistance. She has lots of walls up. She has to think about how she feels. And Iyanla teaches in this episode really well how we have to get out of our head and listen more to our heart, our intuition, what we know to be right, good, and true, not what we've learned in our head through experience and logic. Again, those things have their place, but they can't be what you rule with at all times. When you do that, you harden your heart, and we shouldn't be hardening our hearts. When she came to see Iyanla, she was in breakdown with everyone. Her sister, her mother, sister meaning the brat, her mother, her daughter. And Iyanla, like, oh my God, said it, which is exactly what I felt when I watched the show with her family. Her mother was who she was, LisaRaye was becoming. Her daughter was who she was, and her sister is who she is right now. And when Iyanla asked LisaRaye why her daughter didn't come back to the show, her daughter said if she wasn't getting paid for it, she didn't have time for it. And I kind of chuckled. I don't know them personally, but I'm like, yeah, that sounds like young LisaRaye. If she wasn't getting a check, she wasn't showing up on set. Her mother being who she was on her way to becoming, I really hoped that she wasn't going to become that because her mother was so hardened and so bitter. But you could tell that LisaRaye was definitely on that path because she was so hardened and refused to hear what other people had to say about their experience with her. Um, a big gem, and you all can write it down, that I took from the valley and mountaintop analogy that Iyanla was doing is that she said healing occurs in the valleys, not the mountaintops. And for me, that was definitely this. It was my altering. Like, it was mind altering. I needed to hear that for myself because I know in my own journey, I call it, and some other people call it, destination happiness. When you're on a mountaintop, you feel like, here, let's say this is the valley of success. You think you've reached it. When I made a transition in 2018, I left New Orleans and I moved to a different place. I had lived in New Orleans for 17 years. And I felt, oh, maybe this is what's going on with my life. Maybe I'm not hearing or doing the things that I need to do in my life because I've been in New Orleans so long and I'm stuck in a rut. And maybe God is telling me I need to leave. So I got a new job, came with a great pay raise. I thought I would get to New Orleans to my new city, and there would be a better dating pool, whatever. I thought this new place was going to be the cure, right? Cure destination happiness. You think running, you think getting to a certain level, whether that's in your job, in your career, a new status symbol, a car, a house, a family, some children, whatever. You think those things will cure everything that's going on in your heart, in your mind, in your spirit, and it won't. Believe me, sis, it won't. I got to my new place with all the new money and was crying every night, literally. And about 3 months after me being here is when I decided to go to therapy because I can be honest with you all, in our community, therapy is shunned. Um, it's looked down on. And for me, I knew all of these things because I have the degrees. And so I always felt like I should be able to do this on my own. I shouldn't have to get a therapist. I know the steps. I know the things to do. I know some behavioral modifications. Nah, nah. Even if you've learned it in books, you need someone outside of you to guide you through. And even if it's just venting, some of my first therapy sessions were literally me regurgitating trauma and issues from 6 years old that I had never gotten out, that I had just stuffed down. My number one defense mechanism is avoidance. So when you're doing your work, you need to think about those things. What are the things that I do when I'm uncomfortable? What are the things that I do when somebody makes me angry, but I don't want to be, I'm a very non-confrontational person. So I will ignore and take until I don't. then it's not good. But that's not fair to anybody for you to do that, because a lot of times the other person doesn't know. We always say they know what they're doing, but a lot of times they don't. And even if they know what they're doing, they don't know how it affects you, because everybody isn't you. To some of my family members, sometimes when I would fly off about things to them, it would be like, you so petty. Like, that's the most simplest thing. But what they weren't realizing was it was that little thing was the straw, because I had been holding in so much. Right. So remember that you get your healing in your valleys, not in the mountaintops. On the next exercise she had LisaRaye write down her principles that are needed in life and where she felt she was with those principles on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being, I have none of this, and 5 being, I fully embody this, right? Shockingly or not shockingly enough, LisaRaye gave herself a 4, which meant this is me most of the time, and I'm striving to do better on all of these principles. I laughed myself when she said she was a 4 for patience, because I'm like, girl, ma'am, just from what we see on this show, on your other shows, you are not patient. That should have been a 1, sis. Courage, wisdom, honesty. Honesty isn't just I tell people the truth. Honesty is, am I truthful with myself? Am I real with myself? Can I bring myself to the carpet? Non-judgment and forgiveness, and then self-mastery. She said she was a 4 on all of this. And Iyanla was like, no, ma'am, you still have a lot of hard work to do. So in going through that hard work, she goes back to her valleys, and she talks about this valley of understanding. She asks LisaRaye, who was the first person who broke her heart? And she talks about her father who broke her heart when she realized that her father's girlfriend went to the same private school as she did. So to her 6th grade self, she thought she was her father's princess number 1. And then she finds out that the side chick's child, not her half sister or anything, like the father didn't have any blood relationship to this child, but was in a relationship with the mother. So he put her at the same private school as LisaRaye. That's where she felt offended. So LisaRaye says, that's how he broke her heart. And Iyanla is like, hold on. It didn't break your heart that he was cheating on your mother and going outside of their marriage? And LisaRaye was like, no, because that was normal to me. And how much does that happen in our life and in our community? We grow up where something is our norm, so we don't see it as wrong. One reason why it's hard for people to do their self-work is because to them, it's normal. That's why nature versus nurture is so important. When I went to New Orleans and I worked in criminal justice, I would often see people, and that's when I really realized that city poor and country poor was different. Because even though, like, my grandmother raised 11 children, they were dirt poor, my grandmother was still very much like, you're going to church, you're doing this, you're doing that. They had one strong parent that kept them on the straight and narrow. But in the city, where poverty was so high, I was dealing with clients in a criminal justice who got, caught up in jail and rehab and stuff like that. It was hard for me to even teach them that, like, stealing is wrong, because literally since they were 3 or 4 years old, they had been sent to the store to steal some bread. So how do you relate to someone, this is wrong, when all of their life this is all they've known? Right? And that's what makes the self-work hard, because in order to do the self-work, a lot of times we'll say, well, if it's good enough for me, it's good enough for them. But honestly, it's not. And that's what you have to accept. It wasn't good enough for you. You should not have been raised like that. You should not have had to deal with those things. And it is hard to sit in it, to say, man, my parents were a little messed up. They taught me some really bad habits. It's hard to deal with that because that means the core fundamental who you are wasn't right. But when we think about how we stop these cycles, you have to accept that in order to not repeat that cycle with your children. Because if not, you'll say, oh, it was good enough for me. Nah, it wasn't. And since you know it wasn't, now it's on you to change it for your children. Um, so Iyanla talks about how, seeing something is out of order, but then you excuse it or accommodate it. And that's what we do because we don't want to offend our parents. We don't want to talk back. In our communities, we're taught that. You don't talk back, you listen. You your parents are to be respected, even if what they're doing or telling you is wrong, and you know that now. So we have to break out of that. Stop excusing and accommodating behavior that we know is wrong. Next, we have where she kind of gives her an example of this with her daughter. She's like, how do you do this with Kai? And LisaRaye talks about how her daughter, forgets everything that she tells her to do as far as around the house and stuff like that. But LisaRaye is like, well, I know she's forgetful. And Ian was like, no, readdress that. And so she finally says, no, I know she's full of BS. But that she excuses what she does, and this relates back to LisaRaye's unresolved feelings for her for her father, because her daughter breaks her heart in the same way that her father did. Her daughter disappoints her, and instead of LisaRaye calling her on it and saying clearly, I'm disappointed in you, she won't do it. She'll just excuse it and baby her and pacify her, which is absolutely giving her a crutch and turning her into what LisaRaye is now. A lot of this occurs because LisaRaye is constantly rationalizing things in her head instead of going to her heart. Next, we see a scene where LisaRaye, they do an actual physical exercise in the valley of non-resistance, where she has LisaRaye lay down, close her eyes, and she talks about being vulnerable. She closes her eyes, she takes her back to little 5-year-old LisaRaye. And what was LisaRaye at that point? LisaRaye says she was spoiled and in love with her father. She asks her about a time when she felt unsafe. And LisaRaye recounts a story where she was in the house with a smoke fire. She ran to the door to get out, but the door was locked. She couldn't get out. Her mother was next door with a friend, a neighbor, and then her mother finally comes back over. I guess she smelled the smoke or heard the alarm going off because she had left some beans on the stove, and that's what caused the fire. But basically from that's where she learned that when she was scared, no one was going to be there for her. Next, she says she felt lonely when she had to share her father with other people, even if it was just friends and family. She felt angry, helpless, and frightened. And that's when she starts to get emotional. So, it was a great visual because you could see the process of her now understanding how this influences all of her relationships, right? Whenever she feels angry or scared, she's like a pit bull. She can't just say, I'm angry or scared. The survival mechanism kicks in of, I'm going to do what I have to do for me. I don't care about anybody else. I'm the only one who can get me out of this. I'm the only one that I can rely on. And so it was great to see that catharsis, to see her let all of that go. Y'all, survival mode is hard. And it sucks again to have to admit that is where you are. I was raised with a family, for the most part, of women. And I was taught from a young age, oh, you got to go to school and do what you do and take care of you because Prince Charming doesn't come around in these neighborhoods all the time. So that's what I did. I went to school. I got my degrees. I take care of me. And it's hard because I have friends, male friends, that are so generous, so loving, no romantic, nothing. We don't think of each other like this. They're honestly like brothers. And they'll try to do things for me or help me. And I'm just like, I got it. I'm good. I got it. you know, and so it's really hard when trying to be in a relationship. I had to sit back and say, this actually pushes people away because people want to help. But when you've kind of learned, because people have let you down in the past, that you have to do for you, it's hard to go back and break those walls down. So for me, it was excellent trying, seeing that with LisaRaye, and it related to my own healing. Karen Barber, thank you so much for the super sticker. I see a lot of other people saying how they need to watch. Hey, Naisha, yes, sis, go watch it. It was super good. Miss D says she has to forgive her parents. We all do, sis. I had to do that. I had to sit down and have a hard talk with me and my mother and my father. But now that we know it, let's get to it. So next we'll go keep going through it. LisaRaye talks about how she was hurt in her interaction with the brat. I think we all kind of saw that on Fox. So she felt like the brat didn't share with her that she was ready to come out of the closet, and that everything we saw on the show was really her hurt feelings. Iyanla got to the core of it and was like, it wasn't hurt feelings. You were angry. And that is how your reactions come off. Your hurt, you show as anger. Instead of just saying, sis, you didn't come to me and tell me that you were going to go public with this new relationship. You haven't even exposed me to your new partner. I'm hurt. Instead, she went straight for the neck, which was her pattern, to get angry. And Iyanla says this is basically because of her relationship with her father. Everything feels like a betrayal to her. And again, I can totally get that. For me, I will say that female relationships have been hard in my life. And I think for most women who have mother issues, female relationships are hard. And even if you go through things as a teenager, that's why getting rid of our baggage is so important. I can remember being in middle school and I was friends with 3 girls. Like we were 3 best friends, right? And for me, that's always a hard thing. You can look at girl groups and see how that goes up, because it's hard for 3 people or 4 people to be best friends, because simply you can't whisper with 3 or 4 people, right? You someone will always feel left out. And if you don't have those core needs that were met from your family on a psychological level, on a physiological level, if you didn't have healthy attachment issues with your parents, it's going to be super hard for you to have healthy attachment going forward with friends. Because honestly, you start to put things on your friends that shouldn't be on them. You're looking for the love and the attention and the affection and the companionship and the acceptance and most people are just like trying to be your friend. They don't know that you're expecting them to be this superwoman savior, because they can't be. So in the last wrap up of that scene, another like super gem that I got from that was Iyanla saying, if all of your close relationships are in turmoil, it's you. Like, hear it again. If all of your close relationships are in turmoil, close family and friends, your man, all of that, it's you. It's no one else. Like, you can keep putting it on everybody else, but the reality is, it's you. And that's not a bad thing. That just means you need to get to the core of what is it in me that, makes me push people away or causes me to feel betrayal at the smallest slight, causes me to feel angry at the smallest sight. That is the key to getting to your triggers, because people are not in charge of your triggers. The only person who can catch that is you. Then she talks about how all of this manifests into other people's problems. So, LisaRaye gets defensive again, and she's like, so I'm supposed to break my neck for everyone else? And Iyanla is like, no, you're not. But the point is, you're not present in your life. You don't hear me when I talk to you. When your daughter was here the last episode, you didn't hear her. You are not present. And when you're not present, you're not only not present for yourself, you're also not present. You're not only not present for others, most importantly, you're not present for yourself. And I know for me, because I am an ambitious person, I'm a type A personality, I'm always thinking 10 steps ahead. I got to do this. I got to do that. I want this goal. I want this thing. And again, it goes back to all of this purpose and intent, success. Why do I want things? Why don't I want relationships or internal self-love? Why do I think these things will bring about these feelings? Because they won't. But when you're not present, you can't fully, one, sit in the stuff you need to sit into, and two, appreciate what you have. A lot of us are doing well, right? We have to practice gratitude and being present in the now, where we are, what we have, what God has already blessed us with, instead of trying to get more and more and more and more. Furthermore, when you're not present, you can't understand the lessons or comprehend, fully embrace the lessons that you're meant to get, because you're trying to get out of the valley. Sometimes you have to sit in the valley and be present, because if you don't, them lessons gonna come over and over and over. And for me, in 2018, I was tired of it, particularly in romantic relationships. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take a break from dating. I'm gonna do all this because I keep getting the same type of relationships. It's not just them, it's something in me. So she gave her an assignment, and this is something that you all can do for you. It's something that I'm going to do for myself, which is, I don't know if you've read it, but you can, if you haven't written down these valleys, you can write them down, take a screenshot or something. But the assignment was for her to go through each valley and find where she was out of order in the valley. In each valley, where was she out of order? Where was she out of order with understanding, with courage, with non-resistance? And really get into, those things. Another thing that Iyanla said that really stuck out to me was that when things happen in LisaRaye's life, she immediately would get into her head and not her heart. And that's where survival mode kicks in. You start thinking about how you've seen this before, what this looks like before, what was going on the last time this happened for you. An easy example is like if you're in a romantic relationship and you're used to being with guys who cheat, right? And your new guy has been wonderful, but he says, oh, baby, I have to work late. And you immediately flip like it's a trigger of last Negro that had to work late was out here cheating with this. You know what I'm saying? And so then your partner has to take on all of that baggage, other people's problems, things that happened before him that may not be even applicable to him. So when you think with your head like that, you jump out quickly on what could be wrong, should be wrong, might be wrong, versus just being still, going in your heart, believing what it is, because the universe, God, whoever you believe in, will always show you what you need to see when you need to see it. You don't have to rush that. Trust, sis. Trust is coming. Um, Next, she talks about how it's important to know your place and your role as the queen in your life. The she calls it the universe. I call it God, whatever you want to call it. Always calls you to a higher level of being. And that is absolutely true. You will get to places in your life where stuff you used to be cool with, not cool anymore. Things you used to be comfortable doing, you no longer want to do those things. My mother would always tell me that, and I didn't understand it. But now at 37, about to be 38, I get it. And if you ain't there yet, just wait, it's coming. Another gem that she talked about was how girls become women. And for me, my cousins and I talk about this all the time because there weren't a lot of married couples. Most of our moms are single moms. And I know for me, I struggle with this and what a marriage looks like and what compromise looks like because I've never honestly really seen it. And so Iyanla says that the girl child achieves her inner experience of womanhood by way of initiation from her mother. The mother teaches this through the way she treats her own womanhood. The girl child achieves her inner experience of womanhood by way of initiation from her mother. The mother teaches this through the way she treats her own womanhood. I needed to hear that, and I actually already kind of knew something like that, which was one of the reasons, again, why I started therapy, because I did not want to have children and then pass all my BS on to my children, particularly a daughter. I've always wanted to be a boy mom also, though, because I felt like the mother-daughter relationship is so complicated. I'm like, just give me a boy. But I know I won't be able to choose those things. So in the event that I have a daughter, I want to do better for my daughter than what I felt I received as a child and show her more about womanhood than I knew. And so LisaRaye says that her mother showed womanhood by being devalued because she stayed with her father for money. She accepted her father's cheating for money. So we have to be cognizant of these things and the messages that we're sending our children. We can say, do as I say, not as I do, all we want to. But the reality is, children watch what you do. Children watch the actions that go on in their household. They listen. They are little sponges. And for whatever reason, they pick up the worst. Like there was a joke going around talking about curse words, and it was like, if I say ABC 1, 2, 3, my kids don't listen, but as soon as I say bald headed MFer, they got that and they running with it. Like, and it's true. Like you can tell them the most wonderful things, but the bad stuff is what tends to stick. So, if you're in a relationship where you're being devalued, where you're being hurt, where you're being physically abused, just think about how that may be affecting your children. And it doesn't just have to be physical abuse. If they see you fighting and cursing and screaming and yelling, they start to think that this stuff is normal. So when we want to build better families and communities, let's just think about that kind of thing. And Iyanla challenges her to think about how she devalues other women or how she has devalued herself as a woman. And so one of the ways is, as if we are familiar with LisaRaye and her career and everything, she married the guy that was the I guess president or prime minister or whatever, like the highest person in Turks and Caicos, and he was a known womanizer. Like that's why they finally ended up getting divorced. And LisaRaye's like, I knew it. I knew that he was a cheater, and I accepted it for a while, and I excused it. Then she also talks about how you devalue other women. Do you compete with them or set up competition? And I'll again give y'all a little story that I'm not proud of, but I'm woman enough now to say I was completely wrong. When I was a junior in college, at Xavier, I got my first little off-campus job at a Radio Shack. And I was the only girl or woman or whatever in the store. I was killing it. I was selling all the cell phones, getting all of the commission and spiffs. And for about 6 months, it was just me and a store full of guys. And I got up to be like the second key holder. I was the night manager. So after maybe a year there, they bring in a new girl. And that girl never did anything to me a day in her life. She was friendly, smiley, bubbly. But I was mean as hell to her. I was. I was not, it's not in me to be like bitter. I ain't gonna call nobody out of their name. But I wasn't warm. I wasn't welcoming. I didn't help her out on the sales floor. I could have been better. But I was threatened. I'm not even gonna lie. It was territorial at that point. I was a pit bull. I was the only chick and she came in on my spot. And so now there was another pretty girl that had to share the attention with. And I did not like that at all. I have grown a lot since then. I'm not that person anymore. And if I ever see her again, I will apologize to her for that. But again, 21, 22-year-old players didn't think like that at all. It was a competition. It wasn't enough money out here for both of us in my mind. People were going to see her and want to buy from her and not me, because Radio Shack was a pretty much male dominated store. There would be guys coming in to get things for their DJ equipment and, new boom boxes and just all kinds of stuff. And I felt like, oh, she's trying to take my spot. Even though I was already a manager, I had the key. There was nothing she could have done that would have taken my spot, unless I had messed up or miscounted something. But I was insecure and I didn't see it that way. So think about that. As women, are we welcoming to other women in our spaces? Are we encouraging other women in our spaces who do the same things that we do? Do we encourage them and motivate them? Or are we selfish with our resources? It's just something to think about. Something you need to soul search and check yourself on. She goes back to the OPP and talks about how OPP basically manifests as people pleasing. It absolutely does. Another like super gem that she shared that for me was super big as a people pleaser in Reformation is that she said it takes vulnerability and courage to say this doesn't work for me anymore without being attached to how they respond. I'll say it again. It takes vulnerability and courage to say this doesn't work for me anymore without being attached to how the person responds. Look, like I said, I'm working through my people pleasing issues, but I know that work still has to be done because I'm attached to how people think or receive when I assert my truth. When I say, for example, y'all who follow me on Instagram saw my checklist. I'm getting a new tattoo for my birthday. My family, I come from a super Christian, super religious family. They don't do tattoos. You don't defile your body, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying blah, blah, blah in a disrespectful way. I'm just saying that's their beliefs. I believe something different, and I believe God knows, my heart knows why I feel something different, but whatever. I'm getting it. But there's still a part of me that's like, man, it sucks that my mother and my family don't accept that I want to get a tattoo. I know when I make these decisions that I'm going to get phone calls. I'm going to get people upset with me. And there's still a part of me that doesn't want them to be upset with me. And now I push through it because I'm doing what I want to do, but I'm still attached to the outcome. So detachment is very big for me in my healing journey right now. Making decisions that I think and know are best for me and being okay with those decisions, whether or not people agree with them or not, as long as it's not hurting anyone else. That's the key. But yeah, like if you are attached to outcomes, for example, this YouTube channel, right? Checking views, checking this, checking that, wondering how people received it. That's an attachment to an outcome. When you really are at your highest level, you do your work, you put it out, and whatever the reception is what the reception is, and you're fine, and you move to the next thing. That's where we grow. That's where we strive to be, where we do our best, regardless of who likes it, accepts it, enjoys it or not. It's for you and it's your best. Next, she talks about resistance. A big thing she said again, resistance is futile when the truth is evident. We think we're out here fooling people. We're not. Your truth tells on you every day. I remember sharing a story with a lady who was a psychologist when I was getting my social work degree at my the place that we had that was for men and women who were re-entering society after probation or parole or prison. And I shared some things with her. And this little white lady read me up and down. She said, "At what age did you learn that you weren't good enough?" I was like, huh? I was probably 30 then. But when she said that, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I didn't realize how just me kind of telling her a random story, I was completely like, she saw straight through me. Y'all, it hurt. So you think you're putting on a great mask and a great shield and cover up, but there are some people who can read you down, who can expose all of that stuff that you think you're covering up. And the reality is, you won't get it out until you're vulnerable with yourself and you do the work to get it out. Next, she talks about the valley of success, and what that looks like with resistance. When you want things, you want certain things, but it has to look like this. You're creating a resistance and attachment. If you want something, just rest in what you want. You may not be able to control how it gets there. And I know for me, again, that's a big issue. I have control issues because of childhood trauma and things like that. I want to control. I want to manipulate. I want to say, oh, how I know what God, I think, ultimately, I know that there are things that I'm planning to do and that I'm destined to do, but I want to know now. Like, I want to know now how I get there. I want to see the road now. I want to see the path now. And the reality is, it ain't for you to know, sis. It's for you to walk through, sis or bro, because I know it's some guys listening. It's not for you to know. It's for you to trust. Follow the path of least resistance, 1 foot at a time in front of you. Don't get so far ahead of yourself. Next, she just talks about everything that's going on with her and her daughter, Kai, how all of this is manifesting LisaRaye's need to control. She wants her daughter out by a certain time, but she's like, also, while she's out, she needs, before she gets out, she needs to wash the dishes and stuff like that. And she's like, you need to stop trying to control Kai because children have to fall and scrape their knees. Your job is to, as a parent, is to be there, not just to tell them what to do. And I know for me, I don't know if my mama watched the episode, but I hope she did. Because for me as a daughter, that has been a struggle. And one of the reasons why I think I have rebelled in some senses, because it's like, I'm going to do me. And she's constantly trying to control everything and how it's done. And the best way to sit outside of yourself, especially if you're like me and you come from a big family, is to just sit in a room and be quiet and watch your other family members. And I did that a few Thanksgivings ago. And I love my aunts and my family together, but they're all very bossy. And so I was able to reflect on, dang, please, is this how you come off to people? Because if you are like them, you got to get it together, sis. Like, this is overbearing. This is controlling. This is bossy. But a lot of times you won't see it for yourself. You see it in everybody else, though. You know, as we like to say, you can't get that what is it, the splinter out of your eye for the plank in someone else's, but whatever it is, we all want to tell everybody else what they're doing wrong, how they're doing it, how they should do it, because for whatever reason you can't turn that introspection on yourself. But in order to fully heal and get yourself where you want to be, you have to do that. Again, it's not just everybody else, it's you too. The next part that they went through was to show patterns. And this is a great exercise, y'all, if you want to sit down with yourself, think about your patterns that you've seen play out in your life, and see if you are perpetuating any of these patterns on your own. So one pattern that was present in LisaRaye's life that Iyanla pointed out was the awareness that her father cheated and that her husband cheated. And then the awareness of her feelings that she had attached to that cheating. The next pattern was that LisaRaye was spoiled growing up, and that her daughter Kai is now spoiled. The next pattern was she aware that her mother controlled her as a child, and now she is controlling her daughter Kai. And the last pattern that she wanted to bring to her attention was that her parents walked around like nothing was wrong, and how she now perpetuates that in her own life. So those are just 4 examples of LisaRaye's patterns, but we can think about our own patterns. And only by thinking and contemplating and, again, becoming aware of those patterns, do we then get the power to break those patterns. LisaRaye has this epiphany, and she is now aware of her patterns and her problems. She says she has to have the courage and work towards the courage to change it, because it's not in her future and it's not in alignment with her purpose and intent. Those two at the top of the valley, the ladder of valleys, and her success. So it was really good to see that her reach that level. Again, it won't happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a 60-minute edited show, but just the key beginnings of breaking down some walls, becoming aware, having the courage to confront these patterns. If she keeps going, she is definitely on a great path. Iyanla, they go back to the queen crowning and throne analogy. Iyanla finally tells her, like, look, you can only crown yourself. The crown and the throne are different. The throne is your heart. And the other big thing that I learned from this episode was that valleys have value. So we all think that we just want to get to the mountaintop. But as people say, you gotta do the work. You have to do the hard work and grow through your process, right? Valleys have value. They are life experiences that you go through and grow through. And until you confront the valleys, where you're weak in your life, you'll never get where you're meant to be, which is ultimately that whole self actualization. Hello? I hope y'all are still here. I don't know what happened with StreamYard right there. But I'm back. I don't know what happened with StreamYard. It's completely crazy. Can y'all see me? I hope so. Give me a thumbs up in the comments if you can see me. StreamYard is acting crazy for some reason. Okay, I see y'all now. Sorry about that. But so what I was saying was we get to see how the valleys really help us. The last thing that Iyanla said that really stuck out to me was you have to learn how to rule from your heart and not your head. And that even when you're going through these steps, you go through your valleys, you try to reach your level in the hierarchy of needs, you will still have valleys because that's what life is. The difference is once you encounter valleys moving forward, you now know how to get out of them more gracefully. You get the lessons, you learn what you need to learn, and you get to grow from it. When you live in your heart, you sit firmly on your throne as a woman, and then there's nothing or no one who can tilt your crown. So, the last thing I'll do before I open this up, if anybody wants to come in and make some of their own comments, I've peppered my own learning and experiences throughout the episode. So I've already given y'all my spiel on what I learned from this episode. But two, I guess, little homework things if you all want something to do if you're working in your own journeys of self-work and self-healing. Two things that I'm going to do is to go through these valleys and see where I am in each valley. And if it's something that I need to work on to understand more, to have more courage, I absolutely know I need to have more courage on some things of letting go, things that no longer serve me. OPP, we talked about that, other people's problems or purpose. I still have to do work in worrying about what other people think of me and how they receive me and how my decisions, look to other people. Even me being in my profession, being a lawyer, and now being on YouTube and doing a panelist at All About the Tea. There are people who come in my DMs right now and say, "You shouldn't be doing that. You're a lawyer." And I'm like, "Ma'am, I'm a whole person," but okay. Purpose and intent, success. What does success look like to you? Love, self-love. Are we there yet? The other one is this principles needed in life. Like I said, she did a whole the assignment was for her to rate herself 1 to 5, on 1 being I have none of this, I need to work on it, and 5 being I fully embody this. So if y'all want to write these down, where are you in patience? Where are you with courage? Where are you with wisdom? Where are you with honesty, non-judgment, and forgiveness? And self-mastery. Self-mastery is like your discipline, doing things that you need to do that you don't have to be forced to do, but just because as an adult what all you need to do, whether that's your budget, whether that's your health. Where are you with self-mastery? So let me see. I am going to, if I can figure it out. I'm trying to see, y'all. I don't know where this thing is. Hold on, y'all. Sorry. Trying to figure it out, and I can't figure it out for whatever reason. How to invite people to the backstage. Let's see. I guess y'all can let me see. I see it. Doug. Sorry, technical difficulties. All right, y'all. I'm dropping. There it is in the comments. If you all want to come backstage, share some of your own thoughts about the episode, or just share anything about the things that we talked about. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where you are in your own healing journeys. If you think any of these things, can help you. Did you relate to what we saw with LisaRaye? And I think a lot of us, whether we want to admit it or not, actually do. Um, we run from things. We hide. We don't want anybody to see. I thought this was so funny. Like, this is a real life example of like when crap is going crazy in your life. Like, the whole world could be imploding and you're like, nothing to see here, nothing to see. Everybody keep it moving, because we want everyone to think that we have it all together. And that's just unfortunately not the reality. And the only way that we really heal, grow, and learn and change is by sharing things with others, sharing our stories, talking about how we can grow and what steps that we've taken to get better. So let me see, look at some of the comments. ARSC, thank you for joining me. It says, happy fun day Sunday, players and fam. Thank you, players. I wasn't accepted because I wouldn't be involved in insects. I wasn't accepted. Now I know it's okay to love me without them. Peace and love, Chef Blondie. Absolutely, Chef Blondie. I'm so sorry that happened in your life. But I'm glad that you stood up for yourself. And I'm glad that you got to a place where you realize that it is okay to love yourself and to be yourself. And if you're a family, look, y'all, boundaries are important. That means even for family members, loved ones, blood members, your mother, you have to, if people don't respect your truth and won't expect what you told them and how you experience them, sometimes we have to set boundaries in place. And sometimes those boundaries mean, look, we're not going to be together anymore. We're not going to be friends anymore, or I have to love you from a distance. I love you, but we got to be apart for right now. Vanessa said, let me take this down. Sorry, y'all. Hey, players, although I don't care for Iyanla spiritually, this was full of good lessons. Absolutely. So I'm a little bit different, I think, from some people as a Christian. I believe in God and Jesus. However, I don't think it's necessarily my job to impose that belief on others. I will share and teach, but I'm not going to beat anybody over the head with it. And I think we really need to work on that as a church, because that's not how you lead souls to Christ. But I have been told that, Iyanla practices some alternative forms of religion. Again, for me, it's about what I've seen her show on the show and how her practical lessons have helped me in my own healing journey. So that's what I watch the show and take away from it. I'm not really getting into who she does, who she worships or serves. That's not really for me to talk about. Stephanie says that don't be on YouTube is that old elitist attitude about the legal profession. I think it's really rooted in the racist, sexist, classist history of the profession that we haven't overcome. Yes. It's been hard. Like, it's so funny. Even older Black attorneys that were my mentors early on, you know, it's just this big generation gap that we have. When I got out of law school, it was you have to wear skirt suits, you have to wear stockings, you have to wear pearls. The only acceptable colors are black and blue suits, and maybe gray. And I'm just not that person. I like a bold lip. I like a splash of color. Um, and the law is not my life. I love it, but I'm a whole person, and so you have to break out of those boxes, and you command respect when you do so. And the ones that don't, you keep it moving. But absolutely, I agree. This profession still has a lot to overcome, but we're pushing through, sis. Um, I read Hi, I read Miriam. She says she watches Iyanla because you can get great information and insight. Absolutely. Look, you can get a word from almost anything. When we're watching these reality TV shows and things like that, I always tell people, use what you can use and dump the rest. You know, get what you can get from it and keep it moving. I dropped the link again just in case anybody wants to come on and join. But if not, we're going to get ready to wrap it up. Let me go back through some of these comments. Zelene Turner says, my daughter's got some tattoos and thought I would get mad and I didn't. I said, it's your body and you are in control of your body. Thank you, Zelene. Like, that's a great attitude to have as a mother. And I think your daughters really needed to hear that. It's great to be accepted by your parents for your decisions, especially if you aren't out hurting people. The tattoo thing is very contagious in my family, just because again they're much older. It's a generational gap as well, and they very much believe, oh, you're not to defile your body and things like that. I just personally don't look at it as defilement. I think God knows his children and he understands why certain children may need or want certain things. For me, I'm always very intentional. I have 3 tattoos. This will be my 4th. Almost all of my tattoos are things that I have thought about for a long time, and they are things that ground my spirit. So, I mean, you can take anything. People get mad now about the crystals and things like that. This bracelet that I wear, this hematite bracelet. And so it's so funny to me because I don't pray to the bracelet. I don't hold crystals and pray about the rocks. But if we really say God created everything, that means he created everything. And he knows that some of his children struggle with anxiety, with depression, with this, the whole faith of a mustard seed is absolutely true. But some of us need something to hold on to remind them of that faith. I am one of those people. When I got, y'all probably can't see it on here. You can kind of see it. But this is the tattoo I got last year on what would have been the 5th birthday of Jace. This tattoo has helped me so much in my grief because it made me feel like, even though I knew my baby was still with me and in my heart, it's something that makes me feel him. And if I'm upset, if I'm grieving, if of anything, I can just like hold my arm, whatever, and I feel better. I don't cry and grieve and go through the process that I used to go through. So again, ultimately, you have to have your own personal relationship with God or your higher power, whatever you call them. And you have to make the best decisions that are for you. And that is where I am in my life. I see things that other people do. I see them and I don't see them. I'm not going to judge what that person does as long as it's not affecting, they ain't out here killing and raping or maiming or doing, bad stuff to other people. Live and let live, y'all. And that's what we talk about, this, self-actualization. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm fully self-actualized. I'm not. But I am at a part in my life where I accept other people for who they are, for what their thoughts are. Everybody isn't you. Everyone wasn't raised like you. Everyone doesn't have your background, your morals. So you have to get to a place where ultimately, if you believe in God and Jesus Christ, his biggest charge to Christians was to love. You can't sit in constant judgment and love people. So that's that. Let me do a few more comments and then we're going to get out of here. T. Vincent says, hi, players. Hi. I love your perspective in general. We think alike. I was wondering what your zodiac sign is. I think we have the same one. I am an Aries, T. Vincent. My birthday is in 8 days. So I am an Aries. Janice Christopher. Hey, sis. Thank you for the support again. Yes, correct, class. I'm 55. Have lived that same way, but I have 4 TAC. And my mother does dwell on really living the life, being married 30 years, but my friends and family hated on me all the time. Unfortunately, like I said, a lot of people just don't, we don't climb that hierarchy of needs. We don't get up the ladder because we're still stuck somewhere else, either consciously or subconsciously. Like I said, like, for example, the hierarchy with safety. Safety is not just, I got a gun and I can protect myself. Safety is emotional safety. Do I feel safe with the person that I'm with the family member that I'm with? Can I be vulnerable with them? Can I trust them to not expose me, to not hurt me? And if you still, struggle with that, it's going to be hard for you to move forward. Kay Lou says we need to pay attention to our health and eating more so than some other things. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's get healthy, y'all, in all ways, emotionally, mentally, physically, financially. Layla Chanel, hey sis, thank you so much for the super chat. Just sending some love. Thank you. Love back to you. Gina Wilson, hey players, great show. I'm going to get off the subject. When are you going to do Ready to Love review? Hopefully it'll be up by tomorrow. I already watched it and took my notes. Y'all, I'm not gonna lie. I saw in the earlier comments somebody asking about Married to Medicine as well. I'm getting to these shows, but I don't know about y'all. I'm a little disappointed. I'm disappointed in Married to Medicine. And I don't know if it's just because of COVID or if these shows are starting to run their I don't know, to run their course with me. Like I said, I'm very in tune to my spirit and what I kind of need right now. And I'm honestly in a place where it's hard to watch constant fighting that I feel is petty. It's one thing if you're fighting over like some real stuff, but the arguments with Heavenly and the rest of them people have been the same arguments for the last 3 years. I am over it and I want them to be over it too. Ready to Love. I love marriage shows. I love shows that and that's why I am going to cover that show because I'm a single woman. So I love seeing other people look for love. But these first 3 seasons of Ready to Love, these people wasn't ready to love. They were ready to get on TV and get some exposure for whatever they're doing for their careers and businesses. They haven't had, I think, but one successful couple, and that was the dude Mario who left Tandy alone to go with Reva at the last minute. There was a whole drama and scandal. And that, their beginning was scandalous, but I've seen where people say they're still, on and popping. But other than that, I had high hopes for this last group, Kalani, and look, when I saw what happened to them after the fact, and he went back to the girlfriend, y'all. So I did watch the casting special in the first episode, so I promise you it will be out this week, probably tomorrow. I don't know if I'm gonna drop them both on the same day or do Monday and Tuesday, but they will definitely be out. And also I watch like kind of casting stuff. So if y'all live in the DC area and you're looking for love, Ready to Love is currently casting the next season. They've done 2 seasons in Atlanta, 2 seasons in Houston. So it seems for season 5, they're going to move on to DC. So y'all go check that out. And I really do have high hopes for this season. I hope they found some good people in Houston that were really looking for actual relationships, because there aren't any relationship shows that really cater to strictly Black people. I love the concept. I love that they focus on 30 to 50-year-olds, because if you watch my Married at First Sight reviews, that's one of my biggest things with Married at First Sight. I honestly don't feel, no disrespect to anybody who got married in their 20s, but I feel like most people in their 20s really just aren't ready for marriage. Even ones in their 30s and 40s aren't ready, but definitely at 20, you're still figuring yourself out. So it has a very good premise. It's just that it seems like the people that they're choosing right now suck. So their intentions aren't pure. I should say that they don't suck as people, but their intentions aren't pure on the show. So I'm hopeful for this season. Although when I watched the casting special, some of those people who had been like single, some of the ladies had been single since college and were now like 39 or 40, had been single for 15 plus years. It's going to be interesting. Very interesting, to see how these people go from being single to relationships, but we'll see. Caleb says, "Players, I'm new. Do you watch Married at First Sight?" Chris and Paige, yes, sis, go a look. I have a Married at First Sight playlist on my channel. I have reviewed every episode since I started my channel, so I think it started at about episode 6. But Chris and Paige, trash, and that was the fault of the experts. Chris should have never been chosen. Anyone who has been in a relationship within the last year of applying to the show should not be eligible to be on the show. That's 1. 2, he showed that he was very immature and materialistic and shallow, even when they were doing the home visits and talking about what he wanted in a wife. He was very base level. So I don't know if Pastor Cal and Dr. Pepper and Dr. Viviana are just getting too old, if they need new people, younger experts, if they're too, like, they're not engaged as to what's actually going on in the world. But a lot of choices that they made were very questionable. Monique says she got married at 25 and wish I had dated around a little more beforehand and had a little more fun. I understand, sis. My goal was to get married by 24, and now I look back at that like, girl, no. That would have been a whole mess. Zach Kane says, hello, greetings from Wyoming. Hello, I've never been to Wyoming. What's your thoughts on Little Women Atlanta? Much love. I haven't seen Little Women Atlanta in probably 3 or 4 seasons. It just got to a point where it was too many shows and I couldn't keep up with all of them. So I focus on the key shows that I really like to watch, and everything else kind of went by the wayside. I used to love the original Little Women. Little Women Atlanta was cool, but I liked the original one. And then other stuff, like I said, you just grow out of things. Like I grew out of hip hop, loving hip hop and their whole franchise, probably back in like 2013, 2014. I know reality TV isn't real, but I wanted to still feel real. And so for me, it was like one episode where Rashida's mama was running over Kirk's motorcycle. And that was it for me. It was horrible acting. And if they were going to be actors, they needed to get them some classes. And it was an insult to my intelligence. And I had to stop watching. That's no tea, no shade to anyone who still watches it. I'm just telling you why I don't watch it anymore. Jennifer says, Chris basically committed fraud in my eyes. They should have annulled that mess of a marriage. I agree, Jennifer. But so here's the thing. The experts claim, both Pastor Cal and Dr. Pepper said that they gave Paige an option when they got back from Vegas to get an annulment, to be done with the show with no financial ramifications. And it just seems like she didn't take that option. I don't know if they're lying, but that's what they've said in the backlash of the show. And honestly, I don't think that they're lying. Paige, honestly, all the things that we talked about today, Paige needs to do a lot of self-work. It seems I would almost bet my last dollar that this is a pattern for her. A man rejecting her and her chasing after him or trying to figure out a way to entice him. She kept, she knew he liked her body. So every date that they had, she would show up with something short and tight. And Lord, it was draining. Like that man said and did everything he could to say, I don't want you. And she was still there willing to make it work and devalue herself more and more and more. It was sad to watch. This cat Rock says, plus the experts said they struggle to get black men who want to marry black women. So Paige would not have had much of an option. Paige also just wanted to be on TV. I will say that I don't believe the experts struggle to get black men who want to marry black women. I think they didn't cast their net far enough. And I hate that people are buying into this narrative. Yes, there are some black men, probably particularly in Atlanta, that, want a certain look in a wife, but 80% statistically of black men are still marrying black women. So I think that's BS. I think they were lazy. Even in their casting with the other couples, they were lazy at best. And at worst, they put together people who they knew would be combustible for ratings. And that's trash because these are real lives that they're playing with. And if you followed the show, which I followed from the beginning, y'all, I didn't think we could get any worse than Matt and Amber a few seasons ago, Michael and Mika, Brandon and Taylor, Zach and Mindy. So we can't just say that only black men act like this. If y'all saw Zach and Mindy, Zach was horrible to Mindy based on her looks. And she was a nice looking lady, more of a ballerina type, but he was a white man who said he wanted exotic. So weird. It's so weird. So, all right. Last time I am going to drop the link. If y'all want to join the chat, come on in. If not, we're going to wrap this up. I've been chatting with y'all for an hour and 40 minutes. Sorry for the technical difficulties when StreamYard went down for a minute. But, the moral of the story with this one, let's bring it back to LisaRaye, the queen of De-Nial, and Iyanla Vanzant. As I said before, this is the last season of Iyanla Fix My Life. They're giving us 6 last episodes, and then Iyanla will be retiring. So I pray that OWN has something else coming down the line, that shows. It's one thing to hear the lessons like in Oprah's life classes, It's a whole different thing when you have actual people there and you have someone guiding them through the work to see how this work is done. And that is what I really loved about Iyanla. A lot of people, learning in books or learning through reading something is one thing. But for people who haven't gotten the courage yet to go to therapy on their own or do their own work, this was tangible, visual examples of the level of work that's needed to move you forward as a person, move your family forward, and ultimately to move our communities forward with being healed and healthy and getting rid of these generational curses and childhood trauma and things that keep us stuck. You know, again, as I said in the beginning of the video, so many people say, it was good enough for me. It wasn't. It wasn't. My mother was raised by a mother who had 11 children in a ninth grade education. And one thing my mother always taught me, because my mother didn't whoop me a lot and she didn't curse a lot. And she would just be like, my mother did those things to me. And I never wanted to do those things to my children. But my grandmother was coming from a straight, like core survival background of the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And she didn't have a man there helping her. So when her children got out of line, and she didn't have a big background in conflict resolution and parenting classes, the things that we have access to now. So when her children got out of line, yeah, she threw a shoe. She got a switch. She got an iron. She got the extension cords. She got whatever she could get to hit them with and get them in line. And my mother took from that that's not something that I want to do to my children. So, people aren't against corporal punishment, but it's like, some stuff is not just corporal punishment. Some of it is actual abuse. So these are just the things that we need to see and we need to check and heal within our own selves. What are some things that your parents did or that you experienced as a child that you don't want to pass on to your children? Right? Lita L says she's not retiring. She said if people are going to come for her, they're going to have to pay to do it. So her work will continue. It will just be probably, yes. But she's retiring from TV. And if you got the coin, you can go see her one-on-one. So I agree with it. We have Sherry. Hey, Sherry, how are you?
Oh.
Hey.
Oh.
How are you? Okay.
Hi, I'm sorry. This is my first time. I'm so excited.
That's okay.
I always see you on All About the Tea, and I love when you're on because you're so
Thanks.
logical. And I have to tell you, and I know that's not what you picked me for. You look exactly like one of my best girlfriends.
Oh, thank
Exactly.
you.
It's so funny. So every time I see you, I think of her. But anyway,
Oh.
talk about Married at First Sight. The Chris
Mm-hmm.
really late coming in, but my daughter and I, who's only 18, we watched it from every season as well. And she's very analytical, and we've come to the conclusion that Chris is probably the worst. He would be Zach, Michael, and Brandon all in one. Like he's narcissistic. He is rude and a liar, like on so many levels. I just can't with him. That's all. I'm just happy to talk to you.
Oh, well, thank you for calling in. And yes, I completely agree, Chris. And it's so crazy because we had such a good season last season with the
Yeah.
couples out of New Orleans, and they go and pick this. And even what we talk about in our community and
Yeah.
what I like to call, well, not I like to call, but what I learned throughout my coursework and a phenomenon that a lot of Black people experience is called spotlight anxiety, where
Mm.
if we are the only Black, people of color or Black person in a room we will take on that belief that we now have to represent Black people. So
That's
I try to be very cognizant of not placing that spotlight anxiety on other people. But I have to be honest and say I felt some spotlight anxiety with Chris.
well,
Like,
yeah,
because Lifetime is a more mainstream show. And I'm like, we had two great
yeah.
Black men, Black husbands last year. And then they come back with this dude who is the most stereotypical person you could ever find, who then brings on this stereotype of being a baby daddy.
Hmm.
I was so disappointed and turned off. And I honestly, I know they've tried to put pictures and stuff out, but I honestly personally don't think that Mercedes was ever pregnant. I think Chris was spiraling. He
Hmm.
wanted out, and he wanted to say something that he thought was so extreme that he would be able to get out of this situation.
Well, it makes sense because on two things. One, he told from the very beginning, he didn't come in as somebody who was trying to impress her. If you think
Mm-hmm.
back to the wedding and all of the, crude things that he said and the way his mannerisms, he wasn't attractive, so he wasn't trying to impress her. And
Mm-hmm.
then he told her the next day after sleeping with her that she wasn't his type. That didn't turn her off enough to say, okay, I don't want to. Most women would be like, okay, well, we don't want to be bothered. She kept going like full steam ahead. I think what bothers me most about either the producers who are picking and doing this all together or the experts is that when Mindy and the girl in Charlotte that was with the tall guy, when all of those girls, and even I think it was Amber in Philadelphia with Luke,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
felt like the producers tried to protect them a little more and try to like, talk them out of it. Maybe not the producers, but the experts. But I feel like when I think back to Mika and now with Paige, it's kind of like, no, just stay in there. No, hang. Paige went over to the producers and said, "I told you I don't want to keep doing this." At one point
Mm-hmm.
when they were on that date, and they was like, "Well, basically go back over there." And
Mm-hmm.
even Mika, I remember when Mika stormed out the room and was like, "Do one of y'all want him? Because I don't want him." And
Yeah,
they,
I don't. So they always try to persuade all of them to stay together. I think for me, because I didn't see it like that, especially with Amber and Matt. With Amber and Matt, I wanted somebody to come get that girl before she ended up in a 5150 hole somewhere.
true.
Amber would be on camera having full on panic attacks because that boy wouldn't come home at night. And
Yeah,
I ain't gonna lie, that season was really hard for me to watch. I was cringing. Like,
yeah,
this is uncomfortable. No one should be watching this. This girl is going crazy on national TV, and y'all are just sitting here filming this. Like,
yeah,
this is a problem. So yeah, they've become very problematic, and I hate it because it has the premise to be a great show. Like, there's enough drama in somebody marrying somebody they don't know,
hmm,
just that
yeah,
for them to be creating this other stuff by putting people together who again. And with Amber and Matt, I felt like neither one of them should have been chosen.
right.
Once you got into their background, like Matt with the his family's divorce. He didn't have any
No
friends
family
or family, no
support.
family at the wedding,
Yeah,
and how traumatized he still was from their divorce. And then with Amber, the same thing. So you pair someone who has severe issues with the divorce and who is what was he, an international basketball player, so basically a nomad
yeah,
who didn't commit to anything in life. You choose to pair him with a girl that's a stage 5 clinger?
yeah,
Like, who didn't know that wasn't going to work? Like, so they did much better last season, but it's like this season they purposely chose people.
yeah.
Virginia and Eric. Virginia wasn't ready to be anybody's wife.
At all. Do you think they did it because they knew like they weren't going to be able to have a lot of scenes, like out in restaurants and
Yeah,
things like that, so they had to
because of
keep stuff
COVID and
funny?
stuff. Maybe they felt they needed extra drama. I don't know,
Yeah,
girl, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm disappointed. They
yeah,
got to do a lot to win me over again because I really did like the show, and like we
yeah,
said, there have been some train wrecks in the past. but I didn't really feel like those train wrecks were engineered to happen. These ones,
Agreed.
you're picking people who adamantly want children with people who don't. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
And these groups that I'm in on Facebook, because I'm in some fan. I love MAFS, so I've been in some fan groups, and now you know the fans are fighting themselves. Well, she should be allowed to not have a baby, and high blood pressure is serious. It is absolutely serious. However, and I know it. I've been through it, but Vincent also shouldn't have to give up
Yeah.
his
Agreed.
his desire to have children. Like,
Agreed.
that's on the experts. Why would you do that? Because
Right.
this is the thing. They're getting married at first sight.
Yeah.
If we were dating and
Yeah.
you told me, "Oh, I'm kind of nervous," that's one thing, because now I have to make the choice. But if I didn't choose you and you're just presented to me and we're forced to be married, we're married on paper, we have this marriage license.
Yeah.
Why would you choose someone for me when you know I want four? Not just he wants kids, he wants four, and she doesn't. Is leery because of her health. Like, and so that's what's so hard for me, because you really get to see the divide between men and women on this, and
Yeah.
in the chat groups, because people are like, well, as a woman, she should have autonomy over her body, and I absolutely believe that as a
Yeah.
woman. But I also see, I've been in a relationship where, like, the guy that I was with for 6 years, he had a vasectomy. And so
Uh,
when I was 24, I knew that, but I also didn't expect it to be a 6 year relationship.
yeah.
And then
Yeah.
once I got to be 30, I
Yeah.
was like, oh no, this can't work. Like, I cannot give up having children for you, because
Right.
if I do, I will be 45 and I will hate you.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want that either,
Mm-hmm.
because the resentment will grow. And that's what people don't understand. You can say, well, they should understand, and till death do you part. Yes, if like, with who was that, Virginia or Eric? One of with Eric, he was finally like, no, if we found out that it was impossible for you to have children, cool. But you won't even try. So those are
Yeah.
different things.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So what do you think about what is it? Ryan? No. Yeah, Ryan and no, Jacob.
Clara,
Jacob and Paige.
Haley,
Is it Paige?
Jacob and Haley.
Haley, yes. Now
I
again,
think.
that's somebody, she's a jet setter. She's been all over the world. She likes to travel, and he looks very content being in his home.
Hmm.
Another mismatch to me. Although I don't think
Hmm.
she's giving him a real chance.
Yeah, I also don't think Haley should have been chosen.
No.
Her whole family and friends have all said she's a runner. She
Mm,
hasn't been in a relationship in 7 years. If you tell me, oh, I haven't been in a relationship for 7 years, I don't think you should just jump straight to marriage if you haven't even been in a relationship in 7 years.
yeah.
You know, of course she's going to feel, she's so used to her autonomy and her independence.
Yeah.
To then
Yep.
have to go with constantly sharing your space with somebody. That's why they were sleeping in separate bedrooms. She's like, hold on, I gotta warm up to this. He gotta be in my bed every night. Like he can't just go back home, like, because again, my question then, if I'm an expert, what have you been doing these 7 years?
Yeah.
Have you done some
Yeah.
self-work? Have
Yeah.
you done some therapy? Have you learned what happened in your last relationship? Have you been date, like, even if you haven't been in a relationship, have you been
Mm-hmm.
dating?
Mm-hmm.
What happened on those dates? Like, to me, I don't know what type of vetting they do, but it looks like none.
Yeah. Yeah. And I no longer believe it's the experts that do this pairing. It's definitely the producers. Because I can't imagine that the experts, with all their insight and knowledge, would think that any of these couples were a good match this season. I'm not even rooting for any of them, to be honest.
Yeah.
Not even Vincent and Brianna, like I was in the beginning, because I'm not quite sure that he can measure up to what she is, what she needs, and I don't know. And
I
I
don't
agree
think
with you. I don't think he shouldn't have to give up his dream to have kids either.
Yeah. And I don't know if anybody could measure up to it. And so that's what I mean when it's like, you also have to examine yourself too. I
Yeah.
love Brianna. I'm probably a
Oh, I like
Brianna.
her.
I'm a type A. I'm a go getter.
Yeah.
But you have to give people autonomy to be themselves.
Yeah.
And where she really rubbed me wrong this last episode was getting up when she gets up.
Yeah.
I'm like, why? Why does he like you can be bossy and all that stuff, but that's a different level of bossy and controlling. Why
Mm-hmm.
must he get up when you get up? What does
Mm-hmm.
that do for you? And where and again, this is where I think this is a symptom of the 20s. Because in my 20s, I thought that love and being in a relationship meant we were up under each other all the time,
Yeah.
right? But that goes away. There comes a point where you're like, oh no, you ain't got something to do. Go somewhere else. Do something else. You know what I'm saying? That's not a realistic view of a marriage and a long-term
Yeah.
relationship. You're
Yeah.
not gonna get up every Saturday morning and do everything as the Bobbsey twins.
Right.
The sooner she accepts that, the better off they'll be. And the sooner she accepts the need to stop trying to micromanage and control everything he
Yeah.
does. Um, yeah, and with his background of, and his culture, he was
Yeah.
going to be against that. Like again, I'm like, I don't know if these people don't have enough life experience. Like I said, book smart, in especially in therapy and psychology, smarts versus real life practical experience are two different things.
That's true.
Like for Paige and Chris, I feel like they just went with, oh, both of them love God or claim to
Yeah.
love God. They
Yeah.
go together. I'm like,
Yes.
no, I'm sorry. As a black woman, I'm not talking about, be clear, y'all. I'm not calling anybody ugly, and I'm not talking about attractive. As a black woman, when I heard Chris describe what he wanted, I knew immediately that Paige did not fit that mold.
Agreed.
That's
Agreed.
all I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm saying what he described was not Paige. If you know
Yeah.
black men who think like Chris,
Mm-hmm.
you would have known. Now, that's why I'm looking at Pastor Cal sideways. That wasn't, and I mean, that's all he kept harping on. I hope she's not ugly.
Yeah.
He said that to the pastor.
He
Not, I'm worried about her heart and if she's a good woman and if, he like her loving God came last. Chris literally said, I want a submissive freak.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what he said as
Mm-hmm.
a man of God.
Yep.
That those were
That
his
don't know how to
first two characteristics.
wait, the man of God that don't know how to read the Bible. He couldn't do the Bible study with her. And he can't
Mm.
even say the blessing. She had to do all of that.
And the man of God who got out of preaching or pastoring
Yes.
because there wasn't enough money in it.
Yes.
Like, come on. When they went on his house tour, the man sat there and said all he talked about was his closet, his Gucci shoes, his Ferragamo shoes, the fact that he had a tuxedo if they needed to go to a gala. He was all very superficial,
Yeah.
shallow, image based.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm
Very
sorry. Paige is gorgeous in her own right,
agreed.
beautiful body and shape. I
Yeah.
think brings a lot, as they say, on paper in terms of career and her own house and this. But to a man like Chris, that doesn't matter.
Right.
Career doesn't matter. Education doesn't matter. Money doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, he comes from this background. You can see, oh, Jesus, with his daddy. The daddy made me want to throw up, excuse me.
Ooh, the
But
daddy.
you could tell that he was a person who was fine with
Ooh.
exchanging money for beauty.
Yeah.
He wants what he said he wanted, a trophy wife. And he is completely fine with that.
Yep.
As long as they're quiet and, as he said, a submissive freak,
Mm-hmm.
he's fine with it. But like you said, when he couldn't lead I'm like, you suggested the Bible study and couldn't lead it. Then talking about, I want you to feed me spiritually. I fed you
Yeah.
physically. I literally want to throw up. I was so upset when I saw that. You're supposed to be, and this is why I don't like when people are getting into a whole tangent. I'm sorry, y'all. But this is why what bothers me with someone who grew up in the church, what I say when I say people manipulating scriptures. So many churches teach women that you're supposed to submit to your husband.
Mm-hmm.
They cut it off there. They don't
Mm-hmm.
then go into the next scripture, which says that husbands are supposed to
Good.
submit to God
Yep.
and love their wives as Christ loves
That's
the
right.
church.
That's right.
Just like when people talk about children and parents, love your mother and father, honor thy mother and father. It also says that parents should not provoke their children to wrath and anger.
Especially fathers, don't provoke your children. And
Exactly. So
yeah,
it's a two-way street.
yeah,
So all of this submission and all this stuff that Paige has bought into, unfortunately, for me, it's like brainwashing. And I cringe every time. I hate to see it. She's a beautiful girl, but she literally needs a lot of self work and deprogramming
yeah,
because she constantly somehow thinks that her being the foot and not the head is some
yeah, yeah,
like not prideful, but it's honorable. It's an
yeah,
honorable thing.
yeah.
Like I should be his helpmeet. Yes, the right one, not some man that you just met for a week. You met
But
this man for a week and he put you through all of this and you are
yes.
holding on for dear life. Like that bothers me.
And 2 days in, he had the girl pregnant.
Hmm.
3 days or 4 days in, he still loves her, so he may go back to her. It was beyond my comprehension.
Hmm.
Beyond.
Yes. All right, girl. We'll
Thank
we'll chat.
you.
Maybe I'll do a live chat just about Married at First Sight one time. But
Oh,
yeah,
that'd be
that show
awesome.
is a whole mess. But
Yeah.
thank you so much for
Thank
joining me and
you.
chatting this Sunday. I
I'm
will
so
see you
happy we
later.
could
We'll be
chat.
on All About the Tea, I think at 8 to
Oh,
go over
tonight.
some love and marriage Huntsville stuff. So
That's
see you
my
there
stuff
if you're
too.
there.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye
All
bye.
right. Bye bye. Hey, I see one more person, and then we're gonna get out of
Hey,
here. Amy,
hey, how you
Jay.
doing? How
Hey,
you
how are you?
doing? I'm fine. I was just I wanted to log in. I didn't get to watch the whole live that you was talking about, but I wanted to know if you I know you talked about LisaRaye, but it was something you talked about before about mothers and daughters.
Hmm.
And I just wanted to hear more because one time you were talking about how mothers can have jealousy when they don't get that same level of love and adequacy from their own mothers. And
Hmm.
I was like, I wanted to hear more about that because I actually have a girlfriend that's going through that, and I just wanted to like get more information on that because I was watching the Lisa Ray thing, and I think the relationship between her mother and her, it's just so toxic. But I just
Hmm.
want to know more about it because I mean, me and my mom, we don't have the best relationship, but my
Hmm.
mother wasn't against me. I think that's what I've never seen before. Like,
So, yeah, I would probably need to do some more research to actually give you more specific points on that. But in general, there are different psychological phenomenons regarding the mother and daughter relationship. And it also occurs in the father and son relationship. It's the two sexes in that energy combining and, knocking up against each other,
mm,
particularly if the person in authority hasn't dealt with their own unresolved issues. So instead of really seeing a mother and daughter, you're basically seeing two women competing.
mm-hmm,
And so with what we saw the last episode, Iyanla brought that to LisaRaye and her mother's attention, that how her father and LisaRaye, and her mother's husband would pit LisaRaye
against,
against the mother. And
mm-hmm,
so the woman was basically treating and attacking LisaRaye as if she were another woman on the streets.
mm,
Because if she told LisaRaye no for something, all LisaRaye had to do was go to the father. And the
mm,
father would say yes. And then LisaRaye was super spoiled and a daddy's girl. And she would be like, hey, my daddy, you can only imagine. My daddy said I can have this. My daddy said I could do that.
mm,
And if you already don't have a solid foundational relationship with your spouse, then yeah, if
mm.
like he was already cheating
Is it more like
and had other women, so
I,
now
I
she
want
has
to
to
add
deal with
like
the fact that he's
is it
basically cheating in their own house in her face. She has no
mm,
respect from him
yeah.
anywhere,
I want to say
and so
is it more like because I know with my mother-in-law I'm no longer married to this man, but
mhm.
she had a deep jealousy for her son's affection, and it was almost like it was a little Is they say the mothers who marry their sons,
Mm-hmm.
but they want to be the wife, but they want to be the mother, and any woman that comes in their life, they're gonna cause level chaos. Is it kind of like that relationship with LisaRaye and her mother, because her mother was fighting for her husband's attention?
Mm-hmm.
The exact type of thing, except she was the mother versus like the mother-in-law.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's all the same thing. If you don't have a solid relationship with whatever the spouse is, it's a threat. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? It goes back to, I'll throw this back on the screen. When we were talking about, I don't know if you missed this part, but when we were talking about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
mm,
So if you already fundamentally don't feel safe in your relationship,
mm,
anything that threatens that challenges the safety of that relationship, even if it's your own child, will then become however you respond to a threat. It's
just
survival. It's
yeah.
either me or you. And because I don't know if you watched that episode
Mm.
with Iyanla in the first LisaRaye
I
episode.
watched the first one, and I
Yeah,
was
so
thinking,
you heard her mother talk about her own childhood.
yeah,
So her
but
mother never felt safe really anywhere. She was
oh,
getting abused in Mississippi
mm,
or wherever she grew up at. She
mm,
escaped to Chicago and went straight
mm,
into this man. And with this man, she was constantly fighting for his attention, love, affection, devotion, whatever, with other women out on the streets.
mm,
And then when she has a child, the child is a girl. So the father was likely a narcissist. And so he knows she doesn't like sharing me. So now I'm gonna make her share me with her own child.
yeah, and
And
the
he would shower. When people talk, this is why honestly a lot of people get divorced, period, because Lord, people don't like to talk about it, but we can talk about it. In the church, we talk about order, right?
mm-hmm,
But so many people have been raised in single parent households. If you tell a person that their husband is supposed to come before, or their wife, whatever, their spouse is supposed to come before their children, you will get a crazy look
yeah,
and a scoffing reaction. What? But it's true.
mm,
In the order of things, God, husband, wife, children.
yeah,
You have to be a united front for your children, because if not, children are good. They little manipulators. If they
mm,
sense a break in that pact, they will exploit that
mm-hmm,
to their benefit. And
mm,
people get so caught up in being parents that they forget to be lovers, and what their core foundational relationship is, to the
mm,
point where if they can even get through the raising the children part, once they get through the raising, that's why a lot of people get divorced once their kids go off to college,
so they have the
because they don't know
relationship.
how to be
Mm,
husband and wife anymore. They've
mm,
only been parents for 20, 30 years.
mm,
So you
mm.
have to maintain your core relationship with what brought you together in the midst of raising your children.
No, I
And
want to talk.
because, mhm,
That's what I'm talking about, because I mean, bringing it back to the whole mother and daughter thing. Because the reason why I have a girlfriend,
mhm,
she has a daughter, and I never we were best friends since we were kids, and now we have a rift in our friendship because I was treating her daughter like I would want my daughter to be treated,
mhm,
but she never had her mother in her life, and she got
mhm,
mad at me, and
mhm,
I was like, I don't see what I'm doing wrong, because I would want you to do the same thing for my daughter,
mhm,
not like oh, like just like if her daughter asked me that, like if she couldn't take her somewhere, she would say, "Well, could you take her to this whatever, to this play or whatever?" I would agree to take her, but then she would be mad when the daughter would be like talking like, "Oh, I had so much fun with her," blah blah blah, and I would never understand until I heard you talking on all about the tea about when a mother doesn't have that relationship with their mother, it can then turn into them competing for their daughter's attention.
mhm.
And I really didn't see it until like recently, where I was just like, I think this is why we were having so much of a rift.
So then you have to ask yourself, like, even if you're not in this relationship, that relationship, like for your relationships moving forward, because here's the thing: we don't know the packages that we're getting. We don't know people's traumas. We don't know the
Mm,
issues that they're still holding on to, their baggage.
Mm.
Were you and her having your own relationship? Were you all going out on dates and doing things as a couple?
This is the thing. We always been close, but I've noticed every time I befriended other people, she would get mad at me.
Yeah,
But
but were you all doing those things just
I
on a
think is
couple
I would
level,
like
not with other people?
this is the thing. I did at one point, but then I'd be like, let's all do it together. You bring your friends. I'm like a person that likes to coordinate and do big events and stuff. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's something that she used to hold against me. But she
Mm-hmm.
would get mad. But it's not that we didn't have our own time together. We spent a lot of time together. That's why we were so close. But then I realized a large part of our fights would always come back to her feeling like someone getting more affection or more attention than her.
Yeah. So then
And then,
you also have to think about time, right?
mm-hmm,
I had this issue with my own mother. And when I had to have my talk with my mother that I had in 2019, she was shocked by a lot of things I said and how I felt. Because we grew up, it was pretty much just me and her in the house. My sister was 16 when I was born. So by the time I was 2, she was off to college. My brother was 15, but he went and lived with their father when I turned 1. So I pretty much grew up as an only child.
mm,
And my mother felt like because we spent time together all the time, it was just me and her growing up in the house.
mm.
So when I said I felt neglected or abandoned or however I felt, she was like, but we were always together. We weren't always together. We were in the house,
Oh,
presence,
mm,
and till this day, quality time is one of my biggest love languages. Quality time and physical touch.
mm,
Presence does not equal quality time.
mm.
And that's why I'm asking you, did you all go out and have your own dates and do your own things where you talked and got to know each other and were actually in the moment, present in the date, not somebody on their phone, either you or her,
I have to
like
say,
not
no, no.
doing other things, like actually spending time and building memory?
You know what? After our children came, I think I was so busy trying to build memories for our children, like my daughter and her daughter. I think that that's where it started. Because my thing is, I want our children to be close, and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted us to build memories with them. And I
Mm-hmm.
think her thing was let's keep continue building memories with each other. And
Mm-hmm.
I was just so focused on the kids. Mind you, this is a
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend, not a husband. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like this.
So it's a balance. I'm not telling you it's easy. I'm not
Mm,
telling you that you're wrong because you don't know what you know until you know it. But that is part of it. Like you can't bring in other parties, especially in a romantic relationship,
mm,
until your foundation is set.
mm, 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 mm.
And because again, those are just core attachment issues. She may have had attachment issues from her childhood with her own parents, maybe where if for instance, a lot of people have this when they have a bunch of siblings
Mm,
and they never got like one-on-one time with the parents.
mm,
They were always compete. It was always about this one. It was always like people always say middle children have that syndrome a lot because the
mhm,
baby gets everything because they're the baby, and the first child gets everything because they're the first one and they're the leader. Then the middle one is just kind of stuck there. Where do I
mm,
belong? And so
mhm,
if you don't have that core fundamental attachment with your parents, goes through the Maslow thing, it'll just continue to repeat itself in your relationships moving forward. And your partner may not even know that about themselves. That's why everybody has to do their own work.
mhm,
Maybe after your relationship, maybe, they started to say, why do I feel like that with everybody? Because again, I have to be honest and say, I felt like that myself. I pretty much grew up as an only child, even though I wasn't an only child.
mm.
And so I'm used to all eyes being on me. So I don't know if you were here when I made the example about how I treated a young lady who worked with me at Home Depot. I mean, not Home Depot, Radio Shack. When I first went into Radio Shack, I was the only girl
Mm,
amongst a bunch of guys.
mm,
So I got used to being the one girl in the store, at the shop. And when men came in to flirt, they flirted with me. And so once I was there for like a year and this new girl came in, it was like, and even myself, I was like, man, I'm not like this. I'm not mean. I'm not catty. But it literally exposed so much crap in me Because
Mm.
I'm like, why am I being mean to this girl? This girl ain't never did nothing to me. She ain't never been shady. But I felt like my territory was being invaded and there
Mm.
was not going to be enough attention for both of us.
Mm.
And it
Mm.
wasn't fair to her, but that's just where it was. And I was 20, 21. And so like people think magically because you're a mother or you have children, to some people that, you know, maternal instinct, the deep caring, that doesn't click on for all women, especially if
Mm.
they weren't cultured in what Iyanla said. You know, let me see what I'll read to you what she said. I don't know if you missed that part
Yeah, I did.
um about the girl. So she says the girl child achieves her inner experience of womanhood by way of initiation from her mother. The mother teaches this through the way she treats her own womanhood. So
Mm.
LisaRaye was bound to be how she is because her own mother initiated her into womanhood as a competition.
So she's used to competing because she had to
Yes,
compete with her own mother. Mm.
yes. So she, throughout her life, she competed with other women or she set up competitions with other women
Mm. Mm. Mm.
and always wanted to dominate because that's what her mother saw her and taught her.
Yeah, and she probably
So,
saw that as like just normal. If you, I feel sense of insecurity or unsafeness, I'm going to just start attacking because I know what
mhm,
that is and I know what to do when I'm dealing with it.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah, and that's it. Again, it's some people are so unaware of it and it's so subconscious. Look, so like I said earlier, survival mode is a beast. You
Mm.
will be in there, your adrenaline, all your body knows is fight or flight.
Mm.
So you're aggressive when it may not even cause for that, but you because you've been betrayed before or hurt before or whatever, that's how you now respond to any little thing that feels like a threat or a betrayal,
Mm. That's
even
you
when it
know
may
so
not be that.
crazy. Will Smith talked about that with Janet Hubert, how he felt
Mm-hmm,
threatened by her, even though she said she just wanted a professional work environment. He felt like you got to go
mm-hmm.
because you're making me feel unsafe and I don't like that feeling. And
Yes.
they hashed it all out. But when it came down to, he felt afraid, and when he feels afraid, he has to attack. That's his
Mm-hmm.
mindset. So
Absolutely.
I was like, damn. I was just like, that all came down from just being afraid. But I get it. But with
Mm-hmm,
me and my girlfriend, I really, because she had her father in her life, but then her father passed when she was 18, and then her mother left when she was like three or four.
mm-hmm,
So she was
mm-hmm,
never with her mother, and I never. Thing is, she told me she never had a desire to have that relationship with her mother because she just never. It was never there. So
mm-hmm,
like it's like not having an arm and knowing you never knew it, you didn't have it, so you never don't know what
mm-hmm.
you're missing. But I
Yeah,
feel once we had our daughters, it came out,
yeah.
it manifested, and I'm a part of family five. I have five siblings. I'm the youngest, so I'm used to getting all the attention. So I think that fed
Mm-hmm,
into our relationship because I'm used to just I don't feel I feel fear, but not in that way where you have
mm-hmm,
to attack and start, like my fear is like it's different. That's what I said. Like
mm-hmm,
I'm not when I was watching LisaRaye, I really was like, I don't know what that's like to be raised with a mother that's attacking you every day in that way. And
mm-hmm,
then I felt sorry for the mother because she was with a cheating man who used her daughter
mm-hmm,
as against her. I don't know
mm-hmm.
what that can feel like. Cause you have a maternal relationship with your child, and for it to be stopped, and for you just to be fighting with this child every day, and
Yeah.
them still, I don't know, them living together and trying to raise a child like her daughter, and they're fighting too. But they didn't talk too much about it, but they talk about that this episode. Her and her daughter.
No, no, because it was just her. She came back to just do her own work. The daughter, like I said earlier in the talk, her daughter didn't come back. Her daughter said, "If this ain't making me money, I'm not coming." And I
Ugh.
laughed because Iyanla said her daughter was who she was, and her mother is who she's going to be if she doesn't stop. And I
I
just laughed because I'm like, well, I don't know LisaRaye, but her own daughter said she was about money early on and making her, doing her career. So when she said that's what Kai said, I'm like, yeah, that's how a 20, late 20s, early 30s person thinks.
Mm.
I don't care healing. What's that? I want my coin. They're not paying us to do this show. Oh well. And I can almost guarantee you that's how a 28, 29-year-old LisaRaye would have responded as well. So,
But that always made me wonder why she was so. When she explained her being mad at the brat, I always felt like that was some mothering issues because it's a deep level of anger towards somebody just trying to live their life. That didn't make sense to me.
well, she said she was actually hurt because Brett had not like actually come to her one on one and expressed that she was ready to come out and told her about Judy. She didn't really know anything about Judy in the new relationship, and then for them to just surprise her like that on the show,
Yeah.
that she was hurt. But Iyanla made her get to the bottom of, you're saying you're hurt, but your hurt comes out as anger, and it all goes back to your childhood and how when you first felt
Mm.
hurt, this is how you responded. You respond in anger. Everything that she does, basically, she responds in anger because she doesn't know how to process different feelings and different emotions.
So she gonna wind up turning into her mother essentially.
If she don't, hopefully she did pretty well on camera, so hopefully she continues the work. But yeah, like that, if she doesn't, she will turn into her mother. And her mother, very closed off, very bitter, very angry. And that's what her mother was. She refused to try to learn any of the lessons and go deeper to why she felt all this. And I said it early on, that's kind of on par with from her generation.
Yeah.
They didn't do feelings, they didn't do emotions, they didn't do, all of this quote unquote psychobabble psychology, get to the root of it. I am the way I am. You just take it.
I mean, she
Ugh.
picked cotton for God's sake. I'll be angry too. No
Yeah.
shade.
Yeah, like, but that's what I'm saying. So part of LisaRaye's healing is even accepting that, like accepting her mother's truth, hearing her mother's story. And that's where grace and forgiveness comes in. That was one of the no, one of the principles that she said, we need in life, and that we need to check in and see where we are with ourselves,
Mm.
non-judgment and forgiveness. And I know I had to do this within myself. You can't be stuck in childhood trauma forever. You can't cry about what you didn't have growing up, or how you wish your parents were, or what you wish they would have done for you. And my mother was a career woman. She wasn't a Susie homemaker, and
Mm.
blah blah blah. So I have to accept that that's the mama I had, and that she did the best she could do. You know what
Mm.
I'm saying? And I firmly know and believe that. But just because someone is doing the best they can do doesn't mean that they're doing what you need or
Mm.
what you wanted as a child.
Mm.
But parents are human and they make mistakes. So that's the ultimate like non-judgment and forgiveness. And I think for me that only really comes about by hearing your parents' stories. So
Mm.
many people again don't really realize that your parents were people before they were your parents.
But do your parents? I mean, from at least my mother, I don't really know her story. She don't tell nothing. Because
But you
there's
have to ask.
some people, even when you ask, my mom comes from a generation where you don't tell negative things about yourself to
Yeah.
protect your child's.
I,
Um,
I I get it. My mama's 74, but you have to try to do the work. You have to try to explain to them why you want to do the work. If you have a therapist and can kind of try to bring them in, I mean, again, try. But if they absolutely are against it, then there's nothing you can do, and you have to learn how to resolve that with your therapist. Like, they have different tools that you can use, like writing a letter to your younger self, or writing a letter to your parent to get the things out. For me, some
mm,
things I gleaned just from my own knowledge of my mother. For example, she was number 3 of 11.
mm,
When I said I wanted to go to school to be a teacher, she was like, "You're too smart to be a teacher." And at first it felt like, man, you're just trying to hold me back and I want to do what I want to do. But then I had to sit back and think that for a woman growing up in 1950s, 60s Mississippi, that's really all you could do was be a maid or a cook or a teacher, maybe a librarian. And
mm.
so in her mind, she felt like you have so much more opportunity. You
Mm,
have access to so many other things. And she's
mm.
never said that. But I kind of resolved that. I think that was what she was meaning.
And you
She,
were saying it as just an aspiration, and you felt like she was shutting you down or something.
yeah.
Oh wow.
Oh, yeah. It was definitely like, oh, no, you're not getting an education degree. Like, that's a negative. You're not doing that. You can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be all this, whereas for me, I was like, well, I just want to be a teacher. Like, aren't you supposed to? I'm too smart to be a teacher. Shouldn't you want smart teachers? Like, I was completely confused. But until it hit me that, like,
Yeah.
she wanted more because she wanted to go to divinity school or to go to law
Mm.
school. Like, she wanted so much more. But she got
Mm.
married at 18 because that's what you did in 1964. A nice boy come to your house and ask for your parents' hand in marriage, your mother's hand, you ask your mother for your hand in marriage. That's what you do.
You just get married and then
Even
you
when I
just
look
live it
at when
out.
she went to school where I'm from, most people will go to Alcorn, Mississippi. I mean,
Mm.
Alcorn State University.
Mm-hmm.
She went to Mississippi Valley State, which was about 5 hours from our hometown, but it was in
Mm.
the Mississippi Delta. Half time the people in the Delta didn't even have running water.
Mm.
But she had 8 siblings under her. And so I'm like, she left because she didn't want to have to go home and help with children again.
Oh wow. Wow.
And like she will literally say that. Like, I went to Mississippi Valley because if I went to Alcorn, my mom was going to expect me to come home every weekend and help with the children.
Mm.
And she had my sister at 21 and my brother at 24 because again, back then you got married and you had children.
Mm.
But I think if she was actually honest with herself, I don't think she really ever wanted children,
Mm.
or at least didn't want them that early
Yeah.
because she wanted a career. She wanted to be more than a maid or a cook. And
Mm.
so that for me softened a lot of the venom, because that's what it was, that I had for her, because I was able to then see how, you can be in a box and marginalized and pigeonholed and you want to get out, but you
Mm.
feel trapped by life. And now your
Yeah.
children are a representation of that entrapment. Right, wrong, and different. They are. And
Yeah.
for people to ignore that mothers feel like that is a disservice to mothers and womanhood and
Your mother went to school. What did she wind up doing as a
everything.
career?
Hold on, Melly says, as a teacher, I'm offended. Don't be offended, Mel. She didn't mean it like that. Like, she was a teacher and then she went back and got her master's and became a counselor.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, but it just wasn't,
Everybody don't want to
I
be a
think she
teacher
felt
though.
like
That's
I
I
was
see
so
it.
young. That was the other thing. Like, again, you can tell when people parent from their places of hurt. I wanted to take a break between college and law school and work. Like I said, I had been working at Radio Shack. I was doing well with selling cell phones. The people at Sprint had kind of recruited me. And in my
Mm.
little country heart and mind, ooh, $60,000? That's a lot. I'm gonna go take this job for $60,000, or I wanted to do Teach for America. I just wanted a break from school for a year. And she
Mm.
was like, no, you're going straight through. You take a break, you get married, you have kids, then you can't go back. And again, I know it's
Mm.
her parenting specifically from her place of hurt
Mm. Mm.
because she had a baby at 21 and 24 and couldn't go to college. Well, she went to college, but couldn't go to grad school until later.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So she didn't want me to quote unquote be, saddled by those types of responsibilities.
Oh, you just
Again,
having an
people
option.
hear things and don't understand. You got to get beyond, which was what Iyanla was saying. Get
Mm.
beyond your head and go to your heart. When you go to your head, you're going to automatically be offended by someone else's truth. And
Mm.
it's not about you. It wasn't a slight to teachers, because she was a teacher. It wasn't a slight to cell phone you know, people who work at Sprint. It was that she felt like you have the opportunities that I didn't have, and you
Mm.
shouldn't squander those.
Mm.
And it's hard for parents to understand that what you may see and want may be something completely different than your children want and see. And that's why, again, it becomes a control thing.
Mm.
A lot of people don't parent their children. They want to control them. You have
Mm.
to allow, like, once you instill core, fundamental, basic things, they don't mean let them run crazy. But at
Hmm.
a certain age, you have to allow them to have some type of autonomy and make
Mm.
some choices for themselves.
Yes.
I watch some of my friends and it's like, they can't wear their hair like that. Even going natural, my hair is natural. That was a hard thing in my family
Wow.
because it was like, you got to get a job. Why wouldn't I be able to get a job with my hair like this? Because when they grew up,
You
you
had
had
to do
to have
it.
a perm, a conk, a
Mm.
press, or whatever. You had to look presentable, the man. So it's a lot. It's a lot that we have to unpack in our community, and it
That's
shows
my
up in
biggest
so
fear
many
with.
different ways. It's just about being aware and trying to make
Mm.
sure we don't pass on these same
That's my biggest
issues
fear
and
with my
judgment.
daughter. My biggest fear with
Hmm.
my daughter is because I grew up in the background of the arts, performing arts, and I gave it up for a religious reason, right? And
Hmm.
then once the religious reason is like, I learned, how you just do retrospect and you see your child and you're like, don't you want, for me, I'm like, don't you want to explore the performing arts? And she's just not into it. And
Hmm.
that just breaks my little heart because it's not anything for her, but for me to have the option. I didn't like, I literally went out on my own and took classes. Like, I found resources and did it on my own like, I played a musical instrument.
Hmm.
And I tell my daughter all the time, like, do you know, I would have loved the parent that said, do you want to sign up for a dance class or you want to do
Hmm.
a arts class? My mother didn't do that. I did that on my
Hmm.
own. And my daughter's like, well, I don't like stuff like that. I want to do, she plays video games. I mean, she
Hmm.
loves, like, I think it's for now, I'm starting to learn to give her that right. But before,
Hmm.
my heart was broken. I was like, you don't want to do this? Mama, like, loves the performing arts. She will take you to a museum. She will take you to any type of opening. That's me. But I realized that's not what she wants to do.
Hmm.
And I'm learning that now, and she's only like 10. But I ain't gonna
Yeah,
lie, when she was like 7 or 8, my heart was broken when she didn't want to do a dance class. I was like, why? That was something I loved it. That
I
was
get it.
me.
I get it. I look, I look, I'll talk about that at a different time, but I don't have, kids yet. I have nieces and I have wanted things for them and I'm not even their mama and they don't want it. And I'm like, my God, I am offering you the world here. But, they have a right to their own personality and their own interests. The
Mm.
goal for me, I know when I do have children, is to, have your basics that you've instilled. But like you said, 10, 11, 12, it's their right. And so just feed those things. Don't just let us sit there and play video games all day, but
No, I
encourage that.
don't.
Look for coding classes,
That's what
look
I was
for
looking
other things that
into.
she can benefit, yeah, from
I
those
was
things.
looking into that,
And
but like
that's
I
what
said,
you need in this society that we're living in now. You can set her up for life. And you have to be open to the fact that their kids and their interests are going to change. It's fluid.
yeah.
You know,
No, but she
my
really
mother
is
still
going
holds
to.
on to the fact that I said I wanted to be a pediatrician my whole life. And then once I got to Xavier, I had a psychology degree, but um
I think you said
my
this on All About
my
Tea. You were saying that you saw when she went there and saw blood. You was like, okay, I'm gonna switch
Oh
this.
yeah. I had a pre-med minor and then I went to they gave us a tour of the LSU Medical Center and I hit the ground when I saw the cadaver room. Yeah, like I literally fainted. I was like, okay, well this probably isn't the place for me because I don't want to cut on dead bodies all day. But my mother, even though I told her that, she didn't hear that. In her head, she still told people, yeah, she didn't want to be in school till she was 30 or 32. So she decided not to be a doctor. I'm like, why do you keep telling people that? I told you why I did not decide to be a doctor. Like, let that go. Just ugh. But it is what it is. You have to accept your people and love them where they are and put your
Understandable.
boundaries up and keep it moving. But yeah, it's just again becoming aware of things like that and kind of checking yourself when you find yourself being like that. Like, is it like you
Hmm.
said? I would have wanted the mother. That's what you would have wanted.
I know. That's why I knew that because my mother didn't do any of those things. I literally signed up for my first instrumental class. I went
Hmm.
out and found the resources, and my mother did not come to my recitals because she was
Hmm.
working. I did all that stuff on my own, and I always used to sit there and think, I wish I had a mom that did this and like enjoyed it. Because my mother doesn't like the performing arts either. She doesn't.
Mhm.
She's like my daughter. In regards,
Mhm.
she's not interested in a poetry jam, any of that stuff. She's just not into it. But
Mhm.
my daughter, I feel like is more technical. I feel like that's something that she's going to probably do well in, doing some type of coding or something. And she's
Mhm.
just not going to be into the arts. But that's what it comes down to. If that's something you love, you just got to go for that for yourself and stop
Yeah.
trying to put the mirror on other people to see yourself in it. You gotta
Mhm.
like just look in the mirror versus looking at yourself versus through other people. And I'm learning that now. But I'm hopefully I just don't get it wrong because I don't want my child to be mad at me. Like I remember you tried to make me do that dance class, and I was like, I'm sorry, baby. That was me. That was all me, just trying to be Paul Abdul in my mind because that's who I was growing. I watched growing up, Janet Jackson and Paul Abdul and all of them that was doing. I was that person. So I'm hoping I don't do that to her. I'm praying I won't.
Yes, but again, like you said, you're now aware of it, and that means you can be more intentional in your relationships and everything moving forward. From what you told me about, your ex into this now, just that's all you can do is become more aware of it and try to make it better.
Yeah.
And help even in your relationships. Like I said, you can't do anybody's work for them, but you can maybe encourage them to do some of their own work into why
Mm.
I'm reacting or triggered the way I am. And then try to grow once you're aware of their triggers. Of course, you don't purposely set off people's triggers, but you can't, you shouldn't be held in the box either because they're triggered by everything. So
Mm. All right. Well, I got it. I
that's
done
it.
had a whole therapy session. Thank you. I'll tell you later.
All
Thank
right,
you.
girl. We're going to be on all about the
I'll be
tea at
tuned
8.
in.
So I will talk to you later. See you later. Thanks for
Okay. Have
calling
a good
in.
one. Bye
Bye.
bye.
All right, y'all. We're about to wrap this up. Went way longer than I thought we were going to go, but it is cool. It has been great conversation, great talking, something that I needed. And I hope you all gained something from it for self care Sundays. Rhonda asks, Plus, did you go to law school in New Orleans? Nola absolutely did. I got all my degrees in New Orleans. I love New Orleans. It's one of my favorite places on earth. I lived there for 17 years of my life. So yes, I got all my degrees in New Orleans. So we're gonna wrap it up. Like I said, we got kind of all over the place with Married at First Sight and other things, but the biggest thing was this is the last final season of Iyanla Fix My Life. The first episode was LisaRaye, the queen of De-Nial. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you all learned something from the episode that you can use in your own life, your own healing journey. Um, the 3 gems, I'll repeat them and then we can go, that I really got from the episode was: one, if all of your close relationships are in turmoil, it's you, not them. That's check number one. Number two was, it takes vulnerability and courage to say that this does not work for me anymore without being attached to how the person responds. So that was good for me as a people pleaser in Reformation. I have to learn how to stand in my truth without regard for how the other people feel. That was a big thing if you struggle with people pleasing, to take away. And then the last gem that I got from this episode was that valleys have values. They are life experiences that you go through and grow through. So don't just think life is only about the mountaintops. Life is in the valleys. Healing is in the valley. Restoration is in the valley. And we can do this, y'all. We can get through it. We can be better for ourselves, first of all, but also for our spouses if we are to get married, for our children, and even if we don't get married or have children, just for our familiar relationships and our community relationships. We all need these things to grow. Lastly, the homework, if you all want to do it, that I'll be doing, is the principles that we need in life, which are patience, courage, wisdom, honesty, non judgment, and forgiveness and self mastery. Are you there? Do you need help in one or more? What can you do to get better in one or more? Right? So that's it, guys. I love y'all. I hope you all have a great Sunday, a great work week. Love, live, light. Let some of them bags go, sis. I will be on Instagram with my sing along Sunday in a few about 15 minutes. I'll have that up. And then I will be on All About the Tea at 8 o'clock. We'll be talking about some love and marriage Huntsville things. So if y'all can join us there, I'd love to have y'all. If not, thank you all so much for the love, the support, the comments, just sticking in here, being with me. We've been here for 2 minutes, 2 hours and 40 minutes, which I didn't think we were gonna do. But I really enjoyed this type of conversation, this level of work. I hope you all do too. Watch the replay, check out the other videos. I promise I'm going to get the Ready to Love up for y'all that were interested in those videos. And the Married to Medicine, I'm going to try to get back to it. Those last couple episodes just didn't motivate me, y'all. And we'll be doing some more. I think I may go live Friday and do a continuation of my Don't Date Him, Sis videos. And join me. Come follow me on Instagram, subscribe to the channel, and I will see y'all next time. All right. Y'all be good, be safe, and love each other. See you later. Bye.